A little boy sprinted barefoot down the street, eyes wide with terror. "Please," he screamed. "He's beating my mama." The bikers froze mid-laugh, then their engines roared to life. What happened next would make headlines, break hearts, and prove that sometimes the scariest men wear the biggest halos. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. If you're hooked in and you're ready to enjoy this story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as interesting as this one, and you don't want to miss it. 6-year-old Tommy Reeves had learned to recognize the signs before the first blow ever landed. It started with the silence, not the comfortable kind that wrapped around their small apartment like a warm blanket on the rare peaceful nights, but the heavy, suffocating silence that pressed against his chest and made it hard to breathe. Then came the smell, whiskey, sharp and sour, clinging to Ray's breath and seeping from his pores like poison. Finally, there was the look in Ray's eyes, empty and dark, as if the man his mama kept saying she loved had left his body entirely, leaving behind something else, something that knew only rage. Tommy had seen that look 3 hours ago when Ray stumbled through the door of the roadside rest diner, where Mama worked the evening shift. Now, pressed against the water-stained window of the women's restroom where she'd shoved him moments before, Tommy watched through a crack in the door as his whole world crumbled again. The diner smelled like grease and coffee, and broken promises. Tommy had spent so many afternoons here, tucked into the corner booth with his coloring books, listening to Mama's tired laughter as she refilled cups and forced smiles for customers who barely looked at her. She'd told him once that waitressing was temporary, that they were saving up to leave, to start over somewhere Ray couldn't find them. But temporary had stretched into 2 years, and the bruises Mama tried to hide under long sleeves, and makeup had become permanent fixtures, like the chipped Formica tables and the flickering neon sign outside that buzzed open into the darkening sky. "You think you can embarrass me?" Ray's voice cut through the diner's ambient noise, the clatter of plates, the hiss of the fryer, the tinny radio playing country songs about heartbreak, smiling at customers like some kind of, "Ray, please." Mama's voice was small, pleading. Tommy hated that voice. It meant she was scared. It meant tonight would be bad. "There are people here. Let's just go home and..." The sound of Ray's hand connecting with her face was like a gunshot in Tommy's ears. Tommy's small hands balled into fists, his fingernails digging crescents into his palms. He wanted to run out there, to throw himself between them like he'd tried before, but Mama had been firm when she'd pushed him into this bathroom. Her eyes wild with fear and something else, determination, maybe, or just desperation. "You stay here, baby. You stay here and don't come out until I come get you. Promise me, Tommy. Promise." He'd promised. He always promised, and he always broke that promise because how could he hide while Mama was hurting? Through the crack he watched Ray grab Mama's arm, his fingers digging into the same spot where yellowing bruises from last week still bloomed beneath her pale skin. She stumbled, her hip catching the edge of a table, sending salt and pepper shakers scattering across the floor with tiny crashes that made Tommy flinch. "Somebody should call the cops," an older woman whispered loudly to her husband at a nearby booth. "Not our business, Helen," the man muttered back, his eyes fixed on his meatloaf. "Don't get involved in domestic stuff. Never ends well." Tommy had heard that before. Neighbors who turned their music up louder when the yelling started. Teachers who accepted Mama's explanations about Tommy's occasional bruises. "He's so clumsy, always roughhousing at the park." Police who'd shown up twice, listened to Ray's smooth explanations, watched Mama's forced smile and slow nod when they asked if she felt safe, then driven away into the night, leaving them right back where they started. Nobody helped. Nobody ever helped. Ray was dragging Mama toward the door now, and she wasn't fighting back anymore. She never really did, not after the first few times when fighting back had only made things worse. Tommy's heart hammered against his ribs so hard, he thought they might crack. The diner's door swung open, bells jingling cheerfully, obscenely, given what was happening. Through the window, Tommy could see the parking lot, illuminated by the amber glow of streetlights and the last purple streaks of sunset. And that's when he saw them. The bikers. There were 5 of them, maybe 6. Tommy couldn't count properly through his tears. They rode in like thunder made visible, their motorcycles gleaming chrome and midnight black, engines rumbling so deep. Tommy felt it in his chest, even through the walls. They wore leather jackets adorned with patches, and wore boots that looked like they could kick through steel. Their faces were weathered, scarred, bearded, bandanas covered their heads, and chains hung from their belts. They looked exactly like the kind of men his mama had always told him to stay away from. "Dangerous men," she'd whispered once, pulling him closer when a group of bikers had rumbled past their apartment. "Not the kind of people you talk to, baby." But as Tommy watched Ray shove his mama against the hood of his rusted Chevy, as he heard her cry out in pain, as he saw Ray's fist draw back for another blow, something inside Tommy's chest cracked wide open. The bikers were parking their motorcycles in a neat row, laughing about something, completely unaware of the violence unfolding just 30 feet away. The lead biker, a mountain of a man with a salt and pepper beard and arms like tree trunks, swung his leg off his bike and stretched, his leather vest creaking. Tommy made his choice. He burst from the bathroom, his small legs pumping, his sneakers squeaking against the linoleum. The few remaining customers in the diner turned to watch him go, but nobody moved to stop him. Tommy hit the door with both hands, sending it flying open, and then he was outside, where the air was cooler and smelled like gasoline and fear and 1,000 broken hopes. "Mama!" he screamed. But Ray had her pinned now, his hand around her throat. Tommy ran, not toward his mama. He'd never been strong enough to stop Ray, never would be, but toward the one group of people who might be strong enough, even if they were dangerous, even if Mama had warned him, even if every instinct told him these men were threats. Because right now he needed a different kind of danger, the kind that could fight back. "Please!" Tommy's voice tore from his throat, raw and desperate. "Please, somebody help. He's beating my mama." The bikers turned. The world seemed to stop spinning. The lead biker, the mountain of a man with the salt and pepper beard, had been mid-laugh, his head thrown back at something one of his brothers had said, but the sound of Tommy's desperate plea cut through the rumble of cooling engines and easy camaraderie like a knife through silk. His laughter died, his smile vanished, his eyes a startling shade of blue beneath thick, dark brows, locked onto the small boy running toward them with terror painted across his tear-streaked face. Tommy's legs felt like they might give out beneath him. His chest burned from running, from fear, from the sheer impossibility of what he was doing. These men were huge, giants in leather and chains, covered in tattoos that snaked up their arms like living things. Up close, they were even more terrifying than from a distance. One had a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. Another wore rings on every finger that looked like they could break bones. But Tommy couldn't stop, not with Mama's choked cries carrying across the parking lot behind him. "He's beating my mama." Tommy sobbed again, the words tumbling out in a rush. "Please, he's gonna kill her. Please, somebody." The lead biker moved faster than Tommy thought possible for a man so large. In one fluid motion, he dropped to one knee, bringing himself down to Tommy's eye level. His massive hands, scarred and claw-used, with faded tattoos across the knuckles, reached out, hovering just inches from Tommy's shoulders, as if asking permission to touch. Hey, slow down, little man." His voice was rough, gravelly, like rocks tumbling in a river, but underneath the roughness was something else, something gentle. "Where's your mama?" Tommy couldn't speak anymore. He could only point with a shaking hand toward the Chevy, where Ray had Mama bent backward over the hood, his hands still locked around her throat. The change that came over the lead biker's face was instantaneous and terrifying. The gentleness vanished, replaced by something cold and deadly. His jaw clenched so hard Tommy could hear his teeth grind, his eyes narrowed to slits, and when he stood, rising to his full height of at least 6'4", he seemed to grow even larger, like a mountain erupting from the earth. "Brothers," he said, his voice quiet but carrying absolute authority, "we got a situation." The other bikers turned as one, following his gaze. The casual atmosphere evaporated like water on hot asphalt. Tommy watched their faces transform, smiles dying, eyes hardening, shoulders squaring. They moved with sudden purpose, forming up beside their leader like soldiers responding to a battle cry. "Marcus," one of them said, a leaner man with long hair tied back and a beard braided into 2 points. "That's... I see it, Ghost." The lead biker, Marcus, kept his eyes locked on the scene unfolding by the Chevy. "I see it real clear." Another biker, younger than the others, with fresh tattoos still bright on his arms, took a step forward, his hands already curling into fists. "Let me..." "No." Marcus's hand shot out, stopping him. "We do this smart, rookie. Controlled. We're not the monsters here, understand? We're the solution." He looked down at Tommy, and his expression softened just a fraction. "Stay right here, little man. Behind us. Don't move. Don't follow. Can you do that for me?" Tommy nodded, but his legs felt like jelly. He wanted to run to Mama, wanted to scream, wanted to wake up and discover this was all just another nightmare. Marcus placed one hand on Tommy's shoulder, a touch so gentle it made Tommy's throat tighten with unexpected emotion, and then turned, striding across the parking lot with his brothers flanking him. They moved like a pack, synchronized and purposeful, their boots hitting the asphalt in a rhythm that sounded like war drums. Ray heard them coming. He released Mama's throat, letting her slump against the hood as he spun around, his face flushed red with rage and whiskey. "The hell do you want? This is private. This is between me and my woman. So turn around and mind your..." Marcus didn't stop walking. He didn't slow down. He just kept coming. And there was something about the way he moved, deliberate, inexorable, like a storm rolling in, that made Ray's voice falter. "I said this is private." Ray tried again, but Tommy could hear the uncertainty creeping into his voice. Ray was a big man, over 6 feet tall and heavy through the shoulders, used to being the most threatening person in any room, but standing in front of 6 bikers, he suddenly looked small. Marcus stopped about 10 feet away. Behind him, his brothers formed a semicircle, cutting off any escape route. The silence stretched out, thick and electric. Mama had slid down to sit on the ground, her back against the Chevy's tire, one hand clutching her throat as she gasped for air. Her eyes found Tommy across the parking lot, and the terror in them made his stomach twist. Private, Marcus repeated slowly, as if tasting the word. You think beating a woman in public is private? She's my girlfriend, Ray spat. What happens between us is none of your damn business, and if you leather-wearing freaks think you can. Shut up. Marcus's voice was soft, but it cracked like a whip. Ray's mouth snapped closed. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to step away from that woman. You're going to put your hands behind your head, and you're going to wait very quietly while someone calls the police. Ray laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. Or what? You gonna hit me? In front of witnesses? He gestured toward the diner, where faces pressed against the windows. You lay one hand on me, and I'll have you arrested for assault. I know my rights. You can't touch me. Marcus smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. You're right. I can't touch you. Won't need to. He took one step forward. Just one. But something in that movement, something in the coiled tension in his shoulders and the cold promise in his eyes, made Ray take an involuntary step backward. See, here's the thing about men like you, Marcus continued, his voice conversational now, almost friendly, which somehow made it more menacing. You're real brave when you're hitting someone who can't hit back, real tough when you're twice someone's size, and they're too scared or too tired to fight. But when you're facing someone who might actually hurt you, he tilted his head, studying Ray like a scientist examining an insect. You fold. I'm not afraid of you, Ray said, but his voice shook. Ghost, the biker with the braided beard, laughed darkly. Yeah, you are. We can smell it on you. Mama was trying to stand now, using the Chevy's bumper to pull herself up. Her legs trembled, and Tommy could see the red marks on her throat, even from where he stood. Marcus noticed too, and something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe, or memory. Ma'am, Marcus said, his voice gentling as he addressed her without taking his eyes off Ray. Are you all right? Do you need medical attention? Mama opened her mouth, closed it. Tommy knew what she was thinking. She was thinking about saying no, about protecting Ray, because that's what she always did, even when he didn't deserve it. About saying everything was fine. It was just a misunderstanding. Please don't make this a big thing. But then her eyes found Tommy again, saw him standing behind the bikers with tears streaming down his face, and something in her expression crumbled. No, she whispered, then louder. No, I'm not all right. He hurt me. He's been hurting me. Baby. Don't. Ray started, his tone shifting to pleading. Don't do this. You know I didn't mean it. You know I love you. I just had a few drinks, and you were talking, Marcus interrupted. Another word out of your mouth, and I'm going to forget I'm trying to be a decent person here. One of the other bikers, a stocky man with a grey beard and kind eyes, had pulled out a cell phone. Got 911 on the line, Marcus. Police are on their way. ETA 7 minutes. 7 minutes. Tommy thought about all the things that could happen in 7 minutes. Ray could run. He could fight. He could hurt Mama again. The bikers could lose their patience and do something that would get them in trouble. Everything could still fall apart. But Marcus stood there like a sentinel, unmoving, his presence alone enough to keep Ray frozen in place, and behind him, his brothers formed an impenetrable wall between the threat and the threatened. For the first time in his life, Tommy felt what it was like to have someone stand between him and the monster, not just promise to help, not just say they cared, but actually stand there, immovable and strong, refusing to let harm pass. The diner door opened, and the owner, a nervous man named Pete, stepped out halfway. Look, I don't want any trouble here. Maybe you bikers should just call for backup, Marcus said without turning around. Tell dispatch there's a domestic violence situation in progress, and we have the perpetrator contained. Tell them we need an ambulance too for the victim. Pete hesitated, then nodded, and disappeared back inside. Ray was sweating now, his eyes darting between the bikers and the road, clearly calculating his chances of escape. This is harassment, he tried. You're illegally detaining me. I'm going to sue. 6 minutes? The grey-bearded biker announced calmly. Mama had made it to her feet. She swayed slightly, and immediately the youngest biker, Rookie, moved to her side, offering his arm for support. She flinched at first, and Tommy saw the understanding cross Rookie's face as he stepped back, giving her space but staying close enough to catch her if she fell. Ma'am, you don't have to be afraid of us, Rookie said softly. We're not going to hurt you. Never. That's not who we are. Your boy's got courage, Ghost added, glancing back at Tommy with something like respect. running up to strangers for help. That took guts, kid. Tommy wanted to feel proud, but all he felt was scared and tired, and so grateful that these men had listened, that they'd believed him, that they'd come. Marcus finally looked away from Ray, turning his attention to Mama. "What's your name, ma'am?" "Sarah," she whispered. "Sarah Reeves." "Sarah, I'm Marcus. These are my brothers from the Iron Guard Motorcycle Club." He gestured to each man in turn. "That's Ghost, Rookie, Bear and Tiny." Tiny was, ironically, the largest of them all, standing at least 6'6" with a barrel chest. "We're going to stay right here until the police arrive. We're going to make sure you and your boy are safe, and that man," he jerked his chin toward Ray, "is never going to touch you again. You have my word." Sarah's face crumpled, and she pressed both hands to her mouth, trying to hold back sobs. "I'm sorry," she choked out. "I'm so sorry. I should have left sooner. I should have protected Tommy better. I should have." "No," Marcus said firmly. "No apologies. None of this is your fault. You understand me? None of it." In the distance, sirens began to wail. The sirens grew louder, cutting through the evening air like screams. Tommy watched from his position behind the bikers as 2 police cruisers pulled into the parking lot, their red and blue lights painting the scene in alternating waves of color. The effect was surreal. Everyone frozen in tableau, lit up like actors on a stage. Ray straightened immediately, and Tommy recognized the transformation. He'd seen it before, the times when police had come to their apartment after neighbors complained about the noise. Ray's posture shifted from threatening to victimized, his expression morphing from rage to confused innocence. It was like watching someone put on a mask. "Thank God you're here, officers," Ray called out before the police had even exited their vehicles. "These men attacked me, threatened me. I was just trying to have a private conversation with my girlfriend when they surrounded me." "He's lying," Tommy shouted, his small voice cracking. "He was hurting Mama. I saw it." 2 officers emerged from the cruisers. The first was a middle-aged man with a beer belly straining against his uniform, and tired eyes that said he'd seen too much. His nameplate read Officer Briggs. The second was younger, a woman with sharp features and her dark hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her tag identified her as Officer Chen. Officer Briggs surveyed the scene with the weariness of someone who'd responded to 1,000 domestic calls and expected this one to be no different. His eyes lingered on the bikers with barely concealed suspicion. "All right, everybody stay calm," Briggs said, one hand resting on his belt near his weapon. "Someone want to tell me what's going on here?" "I'll tell you what's going on." Ray jumped in again, his voice taking on an injured tone. "I came to pick up my girlfriend from work, and these bikers jumped me, started threatening me, wouldn't let me leave. I want to press charges for assault and unlawful detention." Marcus didn't move. He stood perfectly still, his arms relaxed at his sides, his voice level when he spoke. "That's not what happened, officer. The boy came running to us, said his mother was being attacked. When we approached, we found this man choking the woman against that vehicle. You can see the marks on her throat from here." Officer Chen had been scanning the scene, and her eyes settled on Sarah, who still leaned against the Chevy, one hand unconsciously touching her neck. Even in the dim light, the red marks were visible, already beginning to purple. "Ma'am," Chen said, approaching Sarah carefully. "Are you injured? Do you need medical attention?" Sarah's eyes darted to Ray, then to Tommy, then to the ground. Tommy knew that look too. The calculation happening behind her eyes, the fear warring with something else. The desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, this time would be different. Why, Sarah started, her voice barely audible. "She's fine," Ray interjected. "Baby, tell them it was just an argument that got a little heated. Tell them these bikers are making it into something it's not." "Sir, I need you to be quiet," Officer Chen said firmly, holding up one hand. "I'm speaking to the lady." "Ma'am, what's your name?" "Sarah Reeves." "Miss Reeves, I need you to tell me what happened here tonight. Take your time." The parking lot fell silent, except for the idling of the police cruisers and the distant hum of traffic on the highway. Tommy held his breath. This was the moment. This was when Mama either told the truth, and maybe finally they could be free, or when she protected Ray again and they'd go home, and everything would be even worse. Because now Ray would be angry about the police, about the embarrassment, about Tommy running to strangers. Sarah's hands trembled, a tear slid down her cheek, cutting a clean path through the smudged makeup that no longer fully covered an old bruise on her cheekbone. "He hit me," she whispered. Then louder, "Ray hit me. He's been hitting me. For 2 years." The words hung in the air like smoke. Ray's face went white, then red. "Sarah, you don't know what you're saying. You're confused, you're upset." "I'm not confused." Sarah's voice cracked, but she pushed forward, the words coming faster now, like a dam breaking. "You hit me tonight. You've hit me dozens of times. You choked me. You told me if I ever left you'd kill me. You said no one would believe me, that I was nothing without you, that—" Her voice broke into sobs. Officer Chen's expression hardened. She moved between Ray and Sarah. A human barrier. Sir, I need you to place your hands behind your head. This is ridiculous, Ray sputtered. But his voice had lost its confidence. She's lying. She's emotional. She doesn't know what she's saying. We've been having some relationship problems. Sure. But this is... Hands behind your head. Now. Chen's hand moved to her weapon. Officer Briggs had been watching the exchange with narrowed eyes. Now he moved toward Ray, pulling handcuffs from his belt. You have the right to remain silent. I want a lawyer, Ray shouted. This is false arrest. You can't do this based on the word of some hysterical woman and a bunch of criminals. He jabbed a finger toward the bikers. Marcus's jaw tightened, but he didn't move, didn't speak. His brothers remained equally still, though Tommy could see the tension in their shoulders, the way their hands flexed at their sides. Those criminals probably saved your girlfriend's life tonight, Officer Chen said coldly, and possibly kept you from catching a murder charge. Now stop resisting. It happened fast. Ray jerked away from Officer Briggs, making a desperate lunge not toward the road but toward Sarah. You bitch, he screamed. You ungrateful. He didn't make it 3 steps. Marcus moved like lightning, intercepting Ray mid-charge, but he didn't throw a punch, didn't tackle him, didn't give Ray any ammunition for an assault charge. Instead, he simply planted himself in Ray's path like a wall, letting Ray bounce off his chest and stumble backward, directly into Officer Briggs's waiting arms. The handcuffs clicked shut. You saw that, Ray yelled, thrashing in Briggs's grip. You saw him assault me. That's battery. Arrest him. I saw him stand in place while you ran into him. Officer Chen said dryly, that's called self-defense. Or in this case, defense of others. She looked at Marcus with something like respect. Thank you for your restraint, sir. Marcus nodded once. Just doing what's right, officer. As Briggs manhandled Ray toward one of the cruisers, Ray's mask finally shattered completely. The injured victim act dissolved into pure venom. You're going to regret this, Sarah. Both of you. You think you can just humiliate me like this? You think I won't remember? I know where you live. I know where the kid goes to school. Tommy felt ice flood his veins. He'd heard Ray make threats before, but never like this. Never so public, so raw, so full of promise. Sarah made a small, terrified sound, and her knees buckled. Rookie caught her before she hit the ground, helping her sink down to sit on the Chevy's bumper. Did you all hear that? Marcus asked, his voice carrying across the parking lot. Everybody here heard him threaten her. And the child, right? I heard it, Ghost confirmed. Crystal clear, Bear added. The grey-bearded biker who'd called 911. Recorded it, Tiny said, holding up his phone. Got the whole thing on video starting from when we first saw him choking her. Officer Chen pulled out her notepad. We'll need copies of that footage for evidence, and we'll be adding terroristic threats to the charges. She looked at Sarah with sympathy. Ma'am, I know you're scared, but you did the right thing telling the truth. We're going to help you. Help me. Sarah laughed, but it was a broken sound. How? By arresting him. He'll be out tomorrow. He'll come back. He always comes back. And next time, she looked at Tommy and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. Next time, I might not be able to protect my son. She's right, Officer Briggs said, returning from securing Ray in the cruiser. His voice was gentler now, tinged with frustration. I hate to say it, but domestic cases like this, even with the threats, he'll probably make bail by morning, and unless she files for a restraining order, which he'll violate. Sarah interrupted bitterly. A piece of paper won't stop him. Tommy couldn't stay back anymore. He broke from his position behind the bikers and ran to his mother, throwing his arms around her waist. She clutched him like a lifeline, burying her face in his hair. I'm sorry, baby, she whispered. I'm so sorry I let it get this bad. I'm sorry you had to be so brave. You shouldn't have to be brave. You should just get to be a kid. Marcus crouched down beside them, his large frame folding with surprising grace. Up close, Tommy could see the details he'd missed before. The faded scar through Marcus's left eyebrow, the small gold hoop earring in one ear, the tattoo on his neck that looked like angel wings. Miss Reeves, Marcus said quietly. Sarah, look at me. Sarah lifted her head slowly, meeting his eyes. You're right that a piece of paper won't stop him, Marcus continued. And you're right that the system isn't perfect, but you're not alone anymore. You understand. My brothers and I, we didn't ride away from men like Ray. We don't turn our backs on people who need help. I can't ask you to, Sarah started. You're not asking. I'm offering. Marcus glanced back at his brothers, who all nodded. We've got resources, safe houses, connections. We can help you relocate, help you disappear, if that's what you need. And until then, we'll make sure he doesn't get anywhere near you, or your boy. Officer Chen looked surprised. You run some kind of organization? Iron Guard MEPSI isn't just a motorcycle club. Ghost spoke up. We're also a non-profit. We help domestic violence victims, women and kids escaping bad situations. Started it 5 years ago after. He glanced at Marcus. After we lost someone who should have been protected. Marcus's face went carefully blank, but Tommy saw the flash of pain in his eyes before he locked it away. We've got a lawyer on retainer, Bear added. She's good. She'll help you file all the right paperwork, get you set up with victim services, the whole 9 yards, pro bono. Why? Sarah asked, her voice small and confused. Why would you do this for strangers? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with barely suppressed emotion. Because 15 years ago I was a kid, like Tommy, and I ran for help too, but nobody came. Nobody stood between my mother and my stepfather, and by the time someone finally called the police, he stopped, swallowed hard. It was too late. She didn't make it. The parking lot went silent. Even the ambient noise of the highway seemed to fade away. Tommy felt his mother's arms tighten around him. I can't change what happened to her, Marcus continued. Can't bring her back, but I can damn sure make sure that other kids don't lose their mamas. Other women don't die because they're too scared, or too trapped to ask for help. He looked at Tommy, and something passed between them. An understanding, a shared pain. Your boy was brave enough to ask. Now we're brave enough to answer. That's how this works. Sarah was crying openly now. But for the first time, Tommy didn't think there were tears of fear. There was something else. Relief, maybe, or hope. There's a shelter about 30 miles from here, Officer Chen said, pulling out a card. They've got space tonight. We can escort you there. Make sure you arrive safely. In the morning, you can connect with resources. Start the process of... No. Marcus shook his head. No shelter. Too easy for him to find her. He'll check all the local ones first. He pulled out his own phone, typing quickly. We've got a place in the next county. Secure. Anonymous. She and the boy can stay there as long as they need. Officer Briggs frowned. With all due respect, sir, we can't just release a victim into the custody of a registered non-profit with proper licensing and credentials. Marcus finished. I'll send you our information. We work with law enforcement all the time. Call your captain if you need confirmation. We're legitimate. The officers exchanged glances. Finally, Chen nodded slowly. Let me make a call. While Chen walked away to use her radio, Officer Briggs turned to Sarah. Ma'am, it's your choice. We can take you to the county shelter, or you can go with these gentlemen to their facility. But I need you to understand that either way, you can't go home tonight. It's not safe. Home. Sarah laughed bitterly. That apartment was never home. It was a prison. She looked at Tommy, smoothing his hair back from his forehead. What do you think, baby? Do you trust them? Tommy looked up at Marcus, at the scarred hands and tattooed arms and rough exterior that had terrified him an hour ago. But now all he saw was the man who'd knelt down to listen, who'd stood like a mountain between them and danger, who'd understood because he'd lived it too. Yes, Tommy said. I trust them. Sarah took a shuddering breath. Okay, we'll go with you. But I need to get some things from our apartment. Clothes for Tommy, some money I've been hiding. We'll send someone with a police escort tomorrow, Bear said. Tonight, you just need to be somewhere safe. We'll provide everything you need, clothes, toiletries, food. You just rest. Officer Chen returned, pocketing her radio. Captain confirmed. You guys check out. Multiple commendations from family services. She looked at Marcus with new respect. He says you helped his sister last year, got her away from her ex-husband. Marcus shrugged. We do what we can. From the police cruiser, Ray's muffled shouting could still be heard, threats and curses pouring through the closed windows. Tommy tried not to listen, but some of the words cut through anyway. Words about what Ray would do when he got out, how he'd make them all pay, how Sarah would regret this. How long will they keep him? Sarah asked, fear creeping back into her voice. At least overnight, Briggs said. With the threats he made on video, the judge might set a higher bail, maybe a few days, maybe a week if we're lucky. But eventually he'll be out, Sarah finished. And he'll come looking. Let him look, Marcus said, and his voice carried absolute certainty. He won't find you. And if by some miracle he does, he'll have to go through us first. He looked at his brothers, who all nodded in agreement. We protect our own, and as of tonight, you're ours to protect. Ghost stepped forward, addressing the officers. We're going to head out, get Sarah and Tommy to the safe house. You need anything else from us? Officer Chen handed him a card. Just send me that video footage and stop by the station tomorrow to give official statements. All of you. She looked at Sarah. You too, ma'am. I know it's hard, but the more documentation we have, the stronger the case. Sarah nodded numbly. The bikers moved with efficient coordination, clearly experienced at this kind of extraction. Bear pulled his truck around, a large black pickup with an extended cab. More comfortable than the bikes for the little guy, he explained. Marcus will ride with you. Rest of us will escort front and back. As they helped Sarah and Tommy into the truck, Tommy caught fragments of conversation between the officers. Not what I expected when we got the call. Damn bikers being the good guys for once. Wish all our domestics ended this way. Tommy settled into the back seat, his mother beside him, Marcus climbing into the front passenger seat. Through the window he could see the other bikers mounting their motorcycles, engines rumbling to life. They formed up like a honor guard. 3 in front of the truck, 2 behind. As they pulled out of the parking lot, Tommy looked back at the diner, at the police cruiser with Ray trapped inside, at the life they were leaving behind. The diner's neon sign still buzzed open, but to Tommy it felt like something was closing. A chapter, a nightmare, a cycle of fear. Where are we going? Tommy asked quietly. Marcus turned in his seat to look at him. In the dim light of the truck's interior, his face was softer than before, the hard edges smoothed by something that looked almost like tenderness. Somewhere safe, Marcus said. Somewhere he can't hurt you anymore. Somewhere you can just be a kid again. Promise. Tommy's voice was very small. Marcus held out his hand, pinky extended. Promise. Tommy linked his pinky with Marcus's scarred one, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, he believed it. The safe house was nothing like Tommy expected. He'd imagined something dark and institutional, like the social services building where Mama had taken him once, when she'd briefly considered leaving Ray the first time. Cold fluorescent lights, plastic chairs, and the smell of industrial cleaner trying to mask desperation. Instead, the truck pulled up to a modest 2-story farmhouse, set back from the road, surrounded by oak trees, whose branches created a canopy of shadows in the moonlight. Warm light glowed from the windows, and a wraparound porch held rocking chairs and potted plants. Wind chimes sang softly in the breeze. This is it? Sarah asked, her voice uncertain. This is it, Marcus confirmed, climbing out of the truck. We call it Haven House. Bought it 3 years ago with fundraiser money. Holds up to 6 families at a time. As if on cue, the front door opened, and a woman emerged onto the porch. She was in her 50s, with silver-streaked dark hair pulled into a loose bun and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. She wore jeans and a soft sweater, and she moved with the calm assurance of someone who'd weathered her own storms and come out stronger. Marcus? She called, her voice warm. Ghost called ahead. We've got the blue room ready. Her eyes found Sarah and Tommy as they climbed out of the truck. Hello, sweetheart. I'm Diana. Welcome to Haven House. Tommy stayed close to his mother as they climbed the porch steps. The other bikers had parked their motorcycles in a line by the barn and were helping Bear unload supplies from the truck bed. Up close, the farmhouse looked even more welcoming. Someone had painted a sign above the door that read, "You are safe here," in gentle, flowing script. Diana held the door open, and they stepped into a foyer that smelled like cinnamon and fresh bread. The interior was cozy, hardwood floors covered with worn but clean rugs, walls painted in soft earth tones, furniture that looked comfortable rather than stylish. Through an archway, Tommy could see a living room with overstuffed couches and a fireplace, and beyond that, a kitchen where something was cooking. I know it's late, Diana said, but I figured you might be hungry. I've got soup on the stove and fresh cornbread. Nothing fancy, but it's warm and it's yours. Sarah's face crumpled. I don't know how to thank you. I don't even know you. And you don't need to thank me, honey. Diana reached out slowly, telegraphing her movement, giving Sarah time to step back if she wanted. When Sarah didn't move, Diana gently squeezed her shoulder. I've been where you are. Different man. Same nightmare. I know what it takes to walk away, and I know how scary it is on the other side. So you're not a stranger to me. You're a sister. And this, she gestured around the house. This is your home for as long as you need it. Tommy felt his mother's hand tighten on his shoulder. When he looked up, she was crying again, but smiling through the tears. The other bikers filed in behind them, stomping their boots on the mat and greeting Diana with easy familiarity. Ghost kissed her cheek. Bear hugged her tight enough to lift her off the ground. Rookie handed her a grocery bag. Got the stuff you asked for, Rookie said. Kids' clothes in size 6. Some toys. Toiletries. Size 6. Sarah blinked. How did you? I've got 3 kids, Rookie said with a shy smile. I can eyeball sizes pretty good by now. If anything doesn't fit, we'll get more tomorrow. Diana took the bag and turned to Tommy. Why don't you come with me, sweetheart? I'll show you to your room, and you can pick out some pajamas. Are you hungry? Tommy looked up at his mother, who nodded encouragingly, even though he could see the fear in her eyes, the fear of letting him out of her sight even for a moment. I'll be right here when you get back, baby, Sarah promised. I'm not going anywhere. Tommy followed Diana up a flight of stairs lined with photographs, pictures of families, children, women of all ages, smiling at the camera. Some looked recent, others were faded with age. Each one had a small plaque beneath it, with a first name and a year. These are the people we've helped, Diana explained, noticing Tommy's attention. Everyone who stays here. If they want, they leave a photo behind, a reminder that they survived, that they're thriving now. How many? Tommy asked. 87 families over the past 3 years, Diana said with quiet pride. 87 women and children who found the courage to leave, who let us help them build new lives. She opened a door at the end of the hall, revealing a bedroom painted a soft blue. There were 2 twin beds with colorful quilts, a dresser, and a bookshelf filled with children's books and toys. A nightlight shaped like a moon glowed gently in one corner. This is your room, Diana said. You and your mama will stay here. Private bathroom is through that door. Nobody comes in without knocking. This is your safe space. Tommy walked in slowly, taking it all in. He'd never had his own room before, even his own bed. He'd always slept on the couch in their apartment, while Mama and Ray took the bedroom. Diana pulled clothes from the bag Rookie had brought. Let's see, here's some pajamas. Do you like dinosaurs or spaceships? Dinosaurs, Tommy whispered. Dinosaurs it is. She handed him a soft pajama set with T-Rexes printed on it. Bathroom's through there if you want to wash up. Take your time. I'll be downstairs with your mama, okay? After she left, Tommy changed quickly, washing his face and hands in the small bathroom. The towels were fluffy and smelled like lavender. The soap was shaped like a duck. Such small, normal things. But they made his throat tight with an emotion he couldn't name. When he came back downstairs, he found his mother sitting at the kitchen table with a bowl of soup in front of her, Marcus sitting across from her, and Diana hovering nearby with the cornbread. The other bikers had scattered. Tommy could hear their voices from the living room talking quietly. There he is, Marcus said, smiling. Feeling better? Tommy nodded, climbing into the chair beside his mother. Diana set a bowl in front of him. Chicken noodle soup with vegetables still steaming. His stomach growled loudly. When's the last time you ate? Diana asked gently. Tommy had to think about it. Lunch at school, Mama didn't have her break at the diner, and Ray didn't. He stopped, not wanting to say that Ray had drunk their grocery money again. Well, eat up, Diana said. There's plenty more where that came from. For several minutes, the only sounds were spoons against bowls and the quiet conversation from the living room. Tommy ate mechanically. But the food was good, better than good. It was warm and real, and made by someone who cared. He could taste the difference. Marcus waited until Tommy had eaten half his bowl before speaking. Tommy, your mama and I have been talking about tomorrow, about what comes next. Tommy set down his spoon, fear prickling up his spine. We're not going back, are we? No, Sarah said firmly, reaching for his hand. We're never going back, but we need to make a plan. A real one. Marcus leaned forward, his large hands wrapped around a coffee mug. Here's the situation. The man who hurt you both, Ray, he's in jail right now, but he won't be there forever. Maybe a few days, maybe a week, if we're lucky. When he gets out, he's going to look for you. And if you're anywhere he can think to look, your apartment, your job, Tommy's school, he'll find you. Tommy felt his mother's hand trembling in his. So we need to move you, Marcus continued. Not just to a new apartment across town, but really move you. New city, new names if necessary, new start. I can't. Sarah's voice cracked. I can't afford that. I have $300 saved. That's it. That's everything. I can't. We're not asking you to pay, Diana interrupted gently. That's not how this works. Heaven House has funding for exactly this kind of situation. We help with relocation costs. First month's rent, security deposits. We have job connections in other cities. People who'll hire our residents, no questions asked. We even help with new IDs, if the situation calls for it. Why? Sarah asked, the question bursting out of her. Why would you do all this for strangers? What do you want from us? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his jaw working. Finally, he set down his coffee mug and pulled up his sleeve, revealing a tattoo that covered his entire forearm. It was a portrait of a woman, young, beautiful, with long dark hair and sad eyes. Her name was Maria, Marcus said quietly. My mother, she was 28 in this picture. I was 13. He traced the tattoo with one finger. She met my stepfather when I was 7. He seemed great at first. Charming, successful, attentive. She'd been raising me alone for so long, working 2 jobs just to keep us fed. I think she thought he was the answer to everything. Tommy watched Marcus's face as he spoke, saw the pain etched into every line. He started small, controlling what she wore, who she talked to, where she went. Then came the put-downs, the insults, making her feel worthless. By the time the hitting started, she was so isolated, so beaten down, she couldn't see a way out. And I, his voice roughened. I was just a kid. I tried to protect her, threw myself between them more than once, got beaten for it too. Sarah made a soft sound of sympathy. One night, it got really bad. Worse than usual. I ran to the neighbors, begging them to call the police. They told me to go home, that it wasn't their business, that I was exaggerating. Marcus's hands curled into fists on the table. So I ran to the convenience store on the corner, begged the clerk to help. He told me to get lost, that he didn't want trouble. By the time I gave up and ran back home, he stopped, swallowed hard. She was already gone. He'd beaten her so badly that she didn't. He couldn't finish. Diana moved to stand behind him, placing her hands on his shoulders. Marcus was put into foster care. Diana continued for him, bounced around for years, got into some trouble as a teenager, fighting mostly, couldn't control his rage at the injustice of it all. But he eventually found his way to the motorcycle community, found brothers who understood pain and loss, and he decided that if no one had helped his mother, he'd damn well help everyone else's. Marcus cleared his throat, composing himself. Started with just me and Ghost, helping women we met who were in bad situations. Word spread. More people wanted to help. Victims who'd survived. Volunteers. Donors. We formalized it. Became a non-profit. Bought this house. Now we've got 3 safe houses, across 2 states, and a network of people ready to help whenever someone needs it. He looked at Sarah, and his eyes were fierce. So when you ask what I want from you, the answer is nothing. I don't want anything, except to make sure that Tommy doesn't end up like I did, standing over his mother's grave, wishing he'd done more, wishing someone had listened. I can't save my mother, but I can save you, and that, his voice broke slightly. That means everything. The kitchen was silent except for the ticking of a clock on the wall, and the distant sound of the other bikers, laughing about something in the living room. Sarah was crying openly now, her face buried in her hands. I'm sorry, she choked out. I'm so sorry that happened to you. No child should. No child should. Marcus agreed quietly. And no child should have to beg strangers for help like Tommy did tonight. But he did it anyway. He was brave when all the adults around him, including me at first, weren't paying attention. That kind of courage deserves to be rewarded with safety, with a future. Tommy felt tears burning in his own eyes. He slipped out of his chair and walked around the table to Marcus, who looked surprised when Tommy threw his small arms around his neck. Thank you, Tommy whispered. Thank you for listening. Marcus's large arms came up slowly, carefully, as if he was afraid Tommy might break. Then they tightened, and Tommy felt the big man's shoulders shake slightly. You're welcome, little man, Marcus said hoarsely. You're so welcome. After a moment, Tommy pulled back. Your mama would be proud of you, he said with the absolute certainty only a child could have. For helping people, for saving us. Marcus's face did something complicated, crumpled and softened and broke all at once. He pressed the heels of his hands to his eyes, and when he lowered them they were wet. That's, his voice failed him. He tried again. That's the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. Diana was crying too, Tommy realized. She squeezed Marcus's shoulders and then moved to Sarah, placing a gentle hand on her back. So here's what's going to happen, Diana said, her voice firm despite the tears. Tonight you both are going to sleep in real beds, in a locked room with people downstairs who won't let anyone hurt you. Tomorrow we're going to start making plans. Our lawyer will come by. Her name is Patricia, and she's wonderful. We'll file for emergency protective orders, work on getting you relocated, set you up with job interviews in whatever city you choose. And through all of it, you're going to be safe. You're going to be surrounded by people who've walked this path before and survived it. I want to help too, Ghost said from the doorway. Tommy hadn't heard him approach. The lean biker leaned against the frame, his braided beard hanging over his chest. I've got connections in Asheville. Good city, big enough to disappear in, small enough to feel like community. I can get Sarah a job at a restaurant there, better pay than here, and there's a great school district. I've got family in Richmond, Rookie added, appearing beside Ghost. They run a daycare, always looking for good people. Tommy'd get free care while Sarah works. One by one, the other bikers gathered in the kitchen doorway, each offering something, job connections, places to stay, people who owed them favors. It was overwhelming, this sudden outpouring of support from people who'd been strangers an hour ago. I don't understand, Sarah said, looking around at all of them. You don't even know us. How do you know we're worth all this trouble? Because everyone's worth it, Bear said simply. Everyone deserves to be safe. Everyone deserves a second chance, and if we can provide that, why wouldn't we? Marcus stood, moving to stand beside Diana. Sarah, tomorrow morning, we're going to sit down with you and figure out what you want, where you want to go, what kind of life you want to build, and then we're going to make it happen. But tonight, he glanced at the clock on the wall which read nearly midnight. Tonight you need to rest, both of you. Sarah looked at Tommy, then back at the gathered bikers, then at Diana. I don't know how to thank you, she said, her voice thick with emotion. I don't know how to repay. Pay it forward, Diana interrupted. Someday when you're on your feet, and you see someone who needs help, you help them. That's how we grow this thing. That's how we make sure fewer people end up where we've been. Sarah nodded, pulling Tommy close. I can do that. I will do that. Good. Marcus smiled, and it transformed his face, made him look younger, lighter, as if the weight he carried had eased just slightly. Now go, get some sleep. We'll be here all night. Some of us in the living room, some in the bunkhouse out back. Nobody's getting past us. You're safe. As Sarah and Tommy headed for the stairs, Tommy paused, looking back. Marcus? Yeah, little man. Are you going to be here tomorrow? When we wake up? Marcus nodded. I'll be here. I'll be here for as long as you need me. Okay. Tommy took his mother's hand. That's good. Upstairs, in the blue room with the moon nightlight and the soft quilts, Tommy climbed into bed while his mother tucked him in. She sat on the edge of the mattress, stroking his hair the way she used to when he was smaller, before Ray and the fear and the walking on eggshells. Mama? Tommy asked sleepily. Are we really safe now? Sarah was quiet for a long moment, and when she spoke, her voice was strong, stronger than Tommy had heard it in years. Yes, baby, we really are, and we're going to stay safe. I promise you that. No more running. No more hiding in bathrooms. No more being scared in our own home. Do you think Ray will find us? Even if he tries, he won't get to us. We've got people protecting us now. Real people. Good people. She leaned down and kissed his forehead. Sleep now. Tomorrow's going to be the first day of our new life. Tommy closed his eyes, and for the first time in longer than he could remember, he felt the tight knot of fear in his chest begin to loosen. Downstairs, he could hear the low rumble of voices. Marcus and the other bikers, Diana, all of them talking and laughing and being there, being present, being the wall between them in the darkness. And Tommy believed his mother's promise, because they'd run to strangers for help, and those strangers had turned out to be exactly what they needed. Heroes came in all forms. He thought drowsily. Sometimes they wore badges. Sometimes they wore business suits. And sometimes, maybe most importantly, they wore leather and chains and rode motorcycles with engines that sounded like thunder. As he drifted off to sleep, Tommy heard Marcus's voice floating up from downstairs, deep and reassuring, telling a story to the other bikers, and Tommy smiled into his pillow, knowing that for the first time in his life, he was somewhere he was truly wanted, somewhere he was truly safe. 3 months later, the morning sun streamed through the kitchen window of the small house on Maple Street, turning everything golden. Tommy sat at the table, his math homework spread out in front of him, a glass of orange juice at his elbow. From the living room, he could hear his mother humming, actually humming, as she folded laundry. It was such a normal sound, such a simple, beautiful, ordinary sound. 3 months ago, Tommy couldn't have imagined this, couldn't have pictured a morning without fear, a house without the smell of whiskey and rage, a mother who sang while doing chores instead of moving through the apartment like a ghost trying not to be noticed. But here they were, in Asheville, North Carolina, 400 miles from Ray, from the diner, from everything that had tried to destroy them, and they were thriving. How's the homework coming, baby? Sarah called from the living room. Almost done, Tommy called back. Just 2 more problems. Sarah appeared in the doorway, a basket of clean clothes on her hip. She looked different now, not just the absence of bruises, though that was part of it. Her face had filled out slightly from regular meals. Her hair, which she'd cut shorter last month, framed her face in soft waves. But more than the physical changes, there was something else, a light in her eyes that Tommy had thought was gone forever. She was happy. Really, genuinely happy. Finish up, she said, checking the clock. Marcus and Diana are coming by in an hour, and I want the house to look nice. Tommy grinned. Marcus had kept his promise. He'd been there every step of the way. He'd helped them move to Asheville, set up the house, even helped Tommy pick out furniture for his room. He called twice a week to check in, visited once a month, and had become something Tommy had never really had before. A constant, reliable presence, a protector, a friend, maybe even something like a father. The thought didn't feel disloyal to his real father, the man who'd left when Tommy was a baby, whose face Tommy couldn't even remember, because Marcus had shown up when it mattered, had listened when Tommy needed someone to hear him, had stood between them and the monster. That counted for something. That counted for everything. Tommy finished his homework just as a familiar rumble echoed down the street. He ran to the window in time to see Marcus's motorcycle pull into the driveway, followed by a car, Diana's sensible sedan. But there was a third vehicle too, a pickup truck. Tommy didn't recognize. They brought someone, Tommy called to his mother. Sarah emerged from the bedroom, smoothing down her shirt nervously. She'd gotten more confident over the past 3 months, had gotten a job at a nice restaurant downtown, made friends with the other servers, even signed up for a community college class starting next semester. But she still got nervous sometimes, still startled at unexpected sounds, still checked the locks on the doors twice before bed. Healing wasn't linear, Diana had explained to Tommy. It happened in waves, good days and hard days, forward progress and occasional setbacks, but the trajectory was upward, always upward. Tommy threw open the door before Marcus could knock. The big biker stood on the porch, his beard neatly trimmed, wearing his usual leather vest over a black t-shirt, but he was smiling, the kind of smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes and made him look 10 years younger. "Hey, little man." Marcus scooped Tommy up in a bear hug that lifted him off his feet. "You getting bigger or am I getting weaker?" "I grew an inch," Tommy announced proudly. "The doctor measured me last week." "An inch? Pretty soon you'll be tall as me." Marcus set him down as Diana came up the porch steps behind him, carrying a pie. "Apple," she said, handing it to Sarah. "Made it fresh this morning." "You didn't have to." Sarah started, but Diana waved her off. "Hush, I wanted to. Besides, we're celebrating today." "Celebrating?" Sarah looked confused. Marcus's smile grew wider. "Let's get inside first. Got someone I want you to meet." The stranger from the pickup truck was climbing out now, a woman in her 30s with kind eyes and professional clothes. She carried a briefcase and moved with the confidence of someone used to handling difficult situations with grace. Inside, everyone settled in the living room, Sarah and Tommy on the couch, Marcus in the armchair, Diana perched on the arm beside him, and the stranger in the second chair. "Sarah, Tommy, this is Patricia Chen," Marcus said. "She's the lawyer I told you about, the one who's been handling your case." Tommy remembered. Patricia had filed all the paperwork for the protective order, had helped his mother file for full custody, even though Ray had no legal claim to Tommy anyway, had handled all the legal details of their relocation. Patricia smiled warmly. "It's nice to finally meet you both in person. We've talked on the phone, but I wanted to deliver this news face to face." She opened her briefcase and pulled out a folder. "I have good news, really good news." Sarah's hand found Tommy's, squeezing tight. "What kind of news?" "Ray Hutchins pleaded guilty to assault, battery and terroristic threatening. With his priors, turns out he had a record we weren't initially aware of, and the video evidence from the bikers, his lawyer advised him to take a plea deal rather than risk trial." "What does that mean?" Tommy asked. "It means he's going to prison," Patricia said gently. "For 5 years, and when he gets out, the protective order will still be in effect. He's not allowed to contact you, come near you, or attempt to find you in any way. If he violates that order, he goes right back to prison." Sarah made a sound, half sob, half laugh. Her hand flew to her mouth. 5 years? 5 years minimum, could be longer with parole hearings and behavior considerations. Patricia leaned forward. "You're safe, Sarah. Both of you. You can stop looking over your shoulder. You can build your life here without fear that he's going to show up." The room erupted. Diana was crying and laughing simultaneously, hugging Sarah tight. Marcus was grinning so wide his face looked like it might split. Tommy felt dizzy with relief so profound it almost hurt. 5 years. Tommy would be 11 when Ray got out. Almost 12. Not a little kid anymore, big enough to protect his mother if needed, though he prayed he'd never have to. But more than that, 5 years of peace. 5 years of building a life that was theirs, not haunted by the threat of violence and rage. 5 years to heal, to grow, to become the people they were meant to be before Ray had tried to break them. "There's more," Patricia said, smiling. "The court is also ordering him to pay restitution for your medical expenses, lost wages, and the costs associated with your relocation. It's not a fortune, but it'll help. The first check should arrive next month." Sarah was full on crying now, and Tommy wrapped his arms around her waist. "We're okay, Mama," he whispered. "We're really okay." "We are," she agreed, holding him tight. "We really, really are." After Patricia left, after the tears had dried and the pie had been served, the 4 of them sat around the table. Marcus, Diana, Sarah, and Tommy, talking about everything and nothing. About Tommy's new school and how he'd made friends with a boy named Jake, who liked dinosaurs as much as he did. About Sarah's classes and her dreams of maybe becoming a nurse someday. About the fundraiser Haven House was planning and how they'd helped 2 more families just last week. "You know," Diana said thoughtfully, stirring her coffee, "we've been thinking about expanding, opening a 4th house, maybe in Tennessee or Kentucky, somewhere we can reach more people." "That's amazing," Sarah said. "How can I help?" Diana and Marcus exchanged glances. "Actually," Diana said, "we were hoping you might want to get more involved with Haven House, not just as someone we helped, but as someone who helps others." Sarah blinked. "Me? But I'm not. I'm just—" "You're someone who survived," Marcus interrupted gently. "Someone who got out and built a new life. Someone who understands exactly what these women are going through because you've been there. That makes you invaluable." "We have other survivors who volunteer," Diana added. "They lead support groups, mentor new arrivals, help with the practical stuff like job hunting and apartment searching. You'd be perfect for it. Sarah looked overwhelmed. I don't know if I'm ready. I mean, it's only been 3 months. No pressure, Marcus assured her. Think about it. And when you're ready, if you're ready, we'd love to have you. Even if it's just answering phones or stuffing envelopes. Every bit helps. Tommy watched his mother's face, saw the emotions playing across it, doubt and hope and fear and determination all mixed together. Finally, she nodded slowly. I'd like that, she said. To help other people like me. Other kids like Tommy. To make sure they know that there's a way out. That there are people who care. She looked at Marcus with tears shining in her eyes. You saved us. Maybe I can help save someone else. Marcus's expression went soft. You're already saving people, Sarah. Just by surviving. By thriving. By showing your son what strength looks like. You're proving that escape is possible. That recovery is real. Never underestimate how powerful that is. Later, after Diana had left and Marcus was preparing to head back to Haven House, Tommy followed him out to the porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that reminded Tommy of the night everything had changed. The night he'd run to strangers and found heroes. Marcus, Tommy said, as the big man swung his leg over his motorcycle. Yeah, little man. I've been thinking about something. Tommy scuffed his shoe against the porch step. About that night. At the diner. Marcus went still. What about it? What if... Tommy had to force the words out. What if you hadn't listened? What if you told me to go away like the neighbors always did? Marcus was off his bike in an instant, kneeling in front of Tommy, his hands on the boy's shoulders. Hey, look at me. He waited until Tommy met his eyes. I did listen. I did help. And so did my brothers. That's what happened, Tommy, not the what-ifs. But so many people didn't help, Tommy said, his voice small. So many people saw what was happening and looked away. Why were you different? Marcus was quiet for a long moment, his blue eyes distant with memory. Because I know what happens when nobody helps. I lived it, and I promised my mother's memory, that I would never be the person who looks away, never be the person who decides someone else's pain isn't my problem. He squeezed Tommy's shoulders gently. You were brave enough to ask for help. The least I could do was be brave enough to give it. I was so scared, Tommy admitted. You looked so scary, all of you did. But I was more scared of what Ray would do to Mama. Sometimes being brave doesn't mean not being scared, Marcus said. It means doing the right thing, even when you're terrified. You taught me that, Tommy. Reminded me why we do this work. Really? Really? Marcus pulled Tommy into a hug. You changed my life too, you know, gave me a chance to be the hero. I wished someone had been for me and my mom. That's a gift, little man. Don't ever forget it. When they pulled apart, both of them were crying a little, but smiling through the tears. Will you keep coming to visit? Tommy asked. Even now that we're safe? Try and stop me, Marcus said with a grin. Besides, someone's got to make sure you're keeping up with your homework, and that your mama's not working too hard, and that you both remember to have fun sometimes. We do have fun now, Tommy said, and realized it was true. They went to parks. They watched movies. They laughed at dinner. Simple things, but precious, because they'd been absent for so long. But it's better when you're here. Marcus's eyes went suspiciously bright. Yeah, well, you're stuck with me now, kid. I'm not going anywhere. He climbed back on his motorcycle. But before he started the engine, he looked back at Tommy one more time. Hey, Tommy. Thank you. For what? For running to us that night. For trusting us. For giving us a chance to be the good guys. Marcus's voice was rough with emotion. Not everyone sees past the leather and the bikes and the tattoos. You did. You saw us for who we really are. You're heroes, Tommy said simply. That's what I saw. That's what you are. Marcus didn't respond with words. He just nodded once, firmly, then started his engine. The familiar rumble filled the evening air, and Tommy stood on the porch watching as Marcus rolled down the driveway, raised one hand in farewell, and disappeared down Maple Street. Inside, Tommy found his mother standing at the kitchen window, watching Marcus leave too. When she heard Tommy come in, she turned, and her smile was radiant. You know what I was just thinking, she said. What? 3 months ago I couldn't imagine tomorrow, couldn't picture a future that didn't include fear and pain and walking on eggshells. But now she gestured around the kitchen, at the house that was small but theirs, at the life they were building piece by piece. Now I can imagine next week, next month, next year, I can imagine you growing up happy and safe. I can imagine going back to school, having a career. Maybe even, she laughed a little, maybe even believing I deserve good things. Tommy hugged her waist. You do deserve good things, Mama. You deserve everything good. So do you, baby. She kissed the top of his head. And we're going to have it. We're going to have the life we should have had all along. The life those bikers helped us find. That night, after dinner and homework and stories, Tommy lay in his bed, his own room, in a house where he felt safe and thought about everything that had changed. About the night he'd made the scariest decision of his life and run towards strangers instead of away. About Marcus and Ghost and Bear and Rookie and Tiny, who'd proved that heroes came in unexpected forms. About his mother, who'd found the courage to tell the truth and claim her freedom. About how sometimes the worst nights led to the best mornings. And about how asking for help, really asking vulnerably and desperately, wasn't weakness. It was the bravest thing a person could do. Tommy didn't know what the future held, couldn't predict whether Ray would stay gone or whether new challenges would arise, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. They weren't alone anymore. They had people, real people who cared, who showed up, who kept their promises. They had Marcus, who called every Sunday just to check in, who remembered Tommy's birthday and his mother's favorite flowers. They had Diana, who sent care packages and words of encouragement, and never let them forget they were part of a larger family now. They had the whole Iron Guard MC, who'd proven that brotherhood meant protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. And most importantly, they had each other. Tommy and his mother, stronger now, healing together, building a future that was finally, beautifully theirs. As Tommy drifted off to sleep, he heard his mother moving around the house, humming that same tune from the morning. The sound wrapped around him like a blanket, warm and safe and full of promise. Tomorrow Tommy would go to school and learn about fractions. His mother would go to work and serve food to people who actually tipped well. They'd come home to their little house on Maple Street and have dinner together, just the two of them, with no fear lurking in the corners. It was such a simple life, such an ordinary, unremarkable, absolutely beautiful life. And it was all theirs. 6 months later, Marcus pulled his motorcycle into the driveway of Haven House, cutting the engine as the sun began its descent toward the horizon. It had been a long day, a good day, but exhausting. They'd helped a woman and her 3 children escape from an abusive husband in Tennessee, got them safely to Haven House #4, the new location they'd opened in Knoxville, and set them up with everything they needed to start over. Days like this reminded Marcus why he did this work, why he'd converted his pain into purpose, his rage into protection, his loss into love. Deanna met him at the door, smiling. "You look tired." "Exhausted," Marcus admitted. "But it's good. We got the family settled. The kids are scared but hopeful. The mom, she reminds me of Sarah. Same look in her eyes, like she can't quite believe she's really free." "Sarah called today, actually," Diana said, leading him inside. "Wanted to give you an update." Marcus's attention sharpened. "Everything okay?" "Better than okay." Diana handed him a piece of paper, a photograph, printed in color. It showed Sarah and Tommy standing in front of a community college building, both of them grinning at the camera. Sarah wore a t-shirt that said "Future Nurse," and Tommy held a sign that read "My mom's going to college." Marcus felt his throat tighten. She did it. She enrolled. Starts next month. Full course load. Already got her financial aid approved. Diana's eyes were bright with pride, and Tommy's teacher says he's thriving. Top of his class in reading. Made the soccer team. Has so many friends his mom has to schedule his play dates. Marcus studied the photograph, his thumb tracing over Sarah's smile. She looked like a completely different person from the terrified woman he'd met in that parking lot 9 months ago. Confident, hopeful, alive. She also said. Diana paused, her voice going soft. "She said to tell you that she's volunteering at Haven House Asheville now, leading a support group for new arrivals, helping them understand that recovery is possible, because she's living proof." Marcus had to sit down. The emotion was too big, too overwhelming. This was why. This was the point of everything. The fundraisers and the long nights and the hard work and the emotional toll, to know that someone like Sarah had not only survived, but was now helping others survive, that the cycle of violence had been broken, that healing was happening, that good was spreading outward in ripples. "You should call her," Diana said gently. "She'd love to hear from you." They both would. Marcus nodded, not trusting his voice. Later, alone in his office at Haven House, he dialed Sarah's number. She answered on the second ring. "Marcus." Her voice was bright, happy. "Did Diana show you the picture?" "She did." Marcus cleared his throat. "Sarah, I'm so proud of you. So damn proud. I couldn't have done it without you," she said simply. "Without all of you, you gave me the chance to rebuild, the space to heal, the support to dream again. You did the hard part," Marcus countered. "You left, you told the truth, you built this new life. That was all you." "We can both take credit," Sarah said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. "Listen, I wanted to tell you something. Something important." "What's that?" "I met a woman last week, came into the restaurant where I work. She had bruises on her arms, and when I asked if she was okay, she started crying, right there in the middle of the lunch rush." Sarah's voice wavered slightly. "I gave her the Haven House number, told her my story, told her about you and what you did for us. She called the hotline that night. Marcus's heart clenched. Is she safe? She's at the Asheville house right now. She and her 2 daughters. Diana said they arrived yesterday. Sarah's voice grew stronger, and it's because I recognized the signs, because I knew what to look for, because you taught me that victims aren't alone, that there are people who care. I saved her, Marcus. The way you saved me. Marcus pressed his hand to his eyes, overwhelmed. That's Sarah, that's incredible. It's the ripple effect, Sarah said. You saved me, so I saved her, and maybe someday she'll save someone else. That's how we change the world, right? One person at a time, one act of courage at a time. Yeah, Marcus said, his voice rough. That's exactly how. They talked for a while longer, about Tommy's soccer games, and Sarah's classes, and the upcoming Haven House fundraiser. When they finally said goodbye, Marcus sat in the quiet of his office, thinking about that night 9 months ago when a terrified little boy had run toward him crying for help. If he'd looked away, if he'd told the kid to handle it himself, if he'd been too busy or too indifferent or too afraid of getting involved, none of this would have happened. Sarah and Tommy might not have survived. That new woman and her daughters would still be trapped. The ripples would never have started. But he had listened. He had helped, and the world was better for it. Marcus looked up at the portrait of his mother on his wall, the same image tattooed on his arm. We did good, Mama, he whispered. We're doing good. He imagined her smiling back at him, proud and peaceful, and finally at rest, knowing that her death had not been meaningless, that her son had transformed his pain into something beautiful, something that saved lives, something that mattered. 1 year later, the Haven House annual fundraiser was in full swing. The event hall was packed with donors, volunteers, survivors, and supporters, all gathered to celebrate another year of helping families escape violence and rebuild their lives. Marcus stood at the microphone on the small stage, looking out at the crowd. He'd given this speech dozens of times, but it never got easier. Sharing his story, his mother's story, the reason behind everything he did. It was like opening an old wound every time. But it was necessary, because stories had power. Stories changed minds and opened wallets and inspired action. 15 years ago, Marcus began, his voice carrying through the hall. I watched my mother die because nobody helped, because the people who could have intervened chose to look the other way. I was 13 years old, and I learned a terrible lesson that the world doesn't care about victims of domestic violence, that the system fails more often than it succeeds, that in the end, you're on your own. The room was silent, everyone listening intently. But then I met some people who taught me a different lesson. Marcus continued, people who showed me that while the system might fail, individuals don't have to. That one person who chooses to care can make all the difference. That courage and compassion can break cycles of violence and create new cycles of healing and hope. He gestured to the side of the stage, where Diana stood with several other volunteers. Together, we've built something amazing. In the past 5 years, Haven House has helped over 200 families, 200 women and children who found the courage to leave, and found us waiting to help them rebuild. The crowd applauded, and Marcus waited for it to die down before continuing. But tonight, I want to introduce you to someone special, someone who reminds me every day why we do this work. He looked toward the back of the room. Tommy Reeves, can you come up here? Tommy, now 7 years old, taller and stronger than he'd been a year ago, walked through the crowd with his mother beside him. He'd dressed up for the occasion in khakis and a button-down shirt, his hair neatly combed, but his eyes held that same fierce courage they'd had the night he'd run to Marcus for help. Tommy climbed the stairs to the stage, and Marcus placed a hand on his shoulder. A year ago, this young man did something incredibly brave, Marcus told the audience. He was 6 years old, his mother was being attacked, and he made a choice. He ran toward strangers, toward us, and asked for help. That one act of courage saved 2 lives, and it reminded me and my brothers why we wear these vests, why we ride, why we dedicate our time and resources to this cause. Marcus looked down at Tommy. But that's not the end of the story. Because of the help his mother received, she was able to go back to school. She's now studying to be a nurse, someone who will spend her life helping others. She also volunteers at our Asheville location, leading support groups and mentoring new arrivals. And Tommy here, he smiled. Tommy's thriving, on a roll at school, soccer star, and according to his mom, one of the kindest kids in his class. The audience applauded again, and Sarah wiped tears from her eyes in the front row. The ripple effect of one act of courage, one decision to help, is infinite, Marcus said. We can't measure all the good that's come from that night. All the people Sarah has helped, and will help in her career, as a nurse. All the kindness Tommy will show throughout his life, because he learned that strangers can be heroes. All the families we've been able to assist, because donors and volunteers saw stories like theirs, and wanted to be part of the solution. Marcus squeezed Tommy's shoulder. Buddy, I know public speaking is scary, but I was hoping you'd say a few words. Tell people what Haven House means to you. Tommy looked nervous, but he stepped up to the microphone, adjusting it down to his height. The room waited. Hi, Tommy said, his voice small but steady. My name is Tommy and Haven House saved my life, and my mum's life. He took a deep breath. I used to be really scared all the time. I didn't know how to help my mom when bad things were happening. I felt alone and helpless. But then Marcus and the other bikers listened when I asked for help. They didn't ignore me or tell me to go away. They helped us. Tommy looked out at the audience, his eyes finding his mother. Now we're not scared anymore. My mom laughs now. We have a nice house. I have friends and I get to play soccer, and I don't have to worry about bad things happening. And it's because people cared enough to help. Because people donated money so places like Haven House could exist. Because people like Marcus decided that helping strangers was more important than looking away. He paused, gathering his courage for what came next. So I guess I want to say thank you to everyone here who donates or volunteers or helps in any way. You're saving people. You're saving kids like me. And maybe, his voice wavered slightly, maybe you're saving someone's life tonight. Someone who needs help, that doesn't know where to find it. Now they know. Haven House is here. And people care. The audience rose to their feet, applauding. Tommy stepped back from the microphone, and Marcus pulled him into a hug. You did great, little man, Marcus murmured. So great. After the fundraiser, after the last donors had left and the event staff had cleaned up, a small group gathered in the parking lot. Marcus and his biker brothers, Diana and some volunteers, and Sarah and Tommy. We raised over $50,000 tonight, Diana announced, her voice filled with wonder, enough to fund operations for months and start planning for Haven House #5. Cheers erupted. Ghost lifted Tiny in a bear hug, which was impressive given Tiny's size. Rookie pumped his fist in the air. Bear wiped proud tears from his eyes. Marcus looked at all of them, his chosen family, the people who'd decided that changing the world was worth the hard work and emotional toll. Then his eyes found Sarah and Tommy, standing slightly apart but smiling at the celebration. He walked over to them. Thank you for coming tonight, for sharing your story. I know it's not easy. It gets easier every time, Sarah said. And if telling our story helps even one person, helps raise even $1 that saves even one life, it's worth it. Mama's helping lots of people now, Tommy said proudly. She talks to scared ladies, and tells them they can be brave like she was. Like we both were, Sarah corrected, ruffling his hair. You were brave first, remember? You showed me that asking for help wasn't weakness. That was the biggest gift you could have given me. Marcus crouched down to Tommy's level. Got something for you, actually. He reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a small leather patch. It was circular, about 3 inches in diameter, with an embroidered design, a pair of angel wings surrounding a small handprint. This is the Haven House patch, Marcus explained. We give it to people who've shown exceptional courage. People who remind us why we do this work. We want you to have it. Tommy took the patch carefully, tracing the design with his finger. Really? I get to keep this? You get to keep it, Marcus confirmed. You earned it, and if you ever need us for anything, you show someone this patch. Any biker who sees it will know that you're under our protection, that you're family. Tommy threw his arms around Marcus's neck. Thank you, for everything, for listening and helping and never giving up on us. Marcus hugged him back, his eyes burning. Thank you for giving me a chance to be the hero I couldn't be for my own mom. You gave me that gift, Tommy. You gave me peace. When they pulled apart, Diana was there with her camera. Picture time, she announced. Everyone squeeze in. The group gathered, the bikers with their leather and chains, Diana with her warm smile, Sarah and Tommy standing right in the center, surrounded by people who'd become their family. Not the family they'd been born into, but the family they'd chosen, the family that had chosen them back. As the camera flashed, capturing the moment forever, Tommy felt something settle in his chest, something that had been jagged and broken and scared for so long that he'd forgotten it could feel any other way. Safety, belonging, love. He leaned against his mother on one side, and Marcus on the other, surrounded by people who cared, and he smiled, really smiled, from the depths of his soul. Because he'd learned something important that night a year ago in the parking lot of a roadside diner. Heroes didn't always wear capes. Sometimes they wore leather vests and rode motorcycles. Sometimes they had tattoos and scars and rough exteriors that hid the gentlest hearts. Sometimes heroes were strangers who became family. And sometimes being brave enough to ask for help was the most heroic thing you could do. 5 years later, Tommy stood in front of Marcus's motorcycle, now 12 years old and already showing signs of the man he'd become, tall for his age, with his mother's gentle eyes and a quiet strength that came from surviving the unsurvivable. You ready? Marcus asked, handing him a helmet. Ready, Tommy confirmed. It was a special day, Tommy's first motorcycle ride with Marcus. They'd been planning it for months, waiting until Tommy was old enough, until Sarah felt comfortable with the idea, until the moment felt right. As Tommy climbed on behind Marcus, wrapping his arms around the big man's waist, he thought about how far they'd come. His mother had graduated with her nursing degree last year and now worked in a pediatric hospital, specializing in helping children who'd experienced trauma. She'd also married a kind man named David, who worked as a teacher and treated both Sarah and Tommy with gentleness and respect. Tommy had flourished too. He still played soccer, had joined the debate team, and volunteered at Haven House on weekends. He wanted to be a social worker someday. He'd decided to help kids like he'd been, to be the person who listened when others looked away. Marcus started the engine, and the familiar rumble filled Tommy's chest. They pulled out onto the road, the wind rushing past, the world opening up before them. And as they rode past the city limits, past the ordinary houses and ordinary lives towards something bigger and brighter, Tommy held on tight and smiled. Because he'd learned that one moment of courage could change everything. That asking for help wasn't weakness, but wisdom. That strangers could become family. And that happy endings weren't just for fairy tales, they were real and hard-won and absolutely worth fighting for. The little boy who'd run crying to a group of bikers 5 years ago was gone, replaced by a young man who knew his worth and his strength. But the lesson remained, carved into his heart like a promise. Help is out there. Hope is real, and heroes are everywhere, if you're brave enough to look. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting and even more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.